move on there just very briefly to the progress report frequency section at the bottom of page 6. And I do have marked there that I'll be providing the information to you on the progress he's making toward these goals on a quarterly basis, as we are on a quarter semester schedule.
Okay.
So I'll be sending those each quarter to you.
Okay.
Okay, so the next section on the top of page 7 is special education services and related services. So if everyone just wants to look over that information, see his service areas, which we covered through the goals. Those services will all be administered in a special education setting, and you can see how many minutes per week he receives at each service, and then of course the dates of the service is going to be all school year. And
Is
questions?
that really only 5 minutes of occupational therapy? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that is quite a short amount, isn't it? Well, there's a few reasons that's 5 minutes. One is that we don't want to remove occupational therapy from his IEP in case that he needs those services, and probably will next year going into high school. And if we take it off now, it's going to be very difficult to pull that back on.
Okay.
And so keeping that 5 minutes on there allows us then to build up and add more time if he needs that.
Okay.
The other reason is that he does receive consultation services. So the occupational therapist does come in and she speaks with us about his sensory needs and his IEP goals, works with Hillary here in his gross and fine motor skills area. So does that answer your question on why it's on there? I know that 5 minutes seems awful short, doesn't it? Okay, so is there any other questions in this area? Great, okay, so our next section is on least restrictive environment, ensuring that we are providing Jacob with the least restrictive environment for his education. So I'm going to go ahead and read through those questions and go through what I marked and then open it up for questions or comments on that section. So the educational placement is based on the student's IEP. Yes, it is. The educational placement is as close as possible to the student's home. Yes, we did take that into consideration. The educational placement is in the school that the student would attend if he or she did not have a disability. Yes, I checked yes on that. And finally, the IEP team considered any potential harmful effect of the educational placement on the student or on the quality of needed services. And yes, we did consider all of those factors. Any comments on that section? Pretty straightforward. Okay, so the next section addresses supplementary aids and services. So the accommodations and modifications that Jacob needs. And you will see under there I provided quite a bit of information and some on the behavior. You had asked a question about that earlier, Mo, so we're going to talk about that a little bit here, okay? So in PE, health, art, in the lunchroom, during recess, during breaks, Jacob will always have adult supervision, and that's going to be Jill who will be with him, and she is with him. He will not be required to take tests in the general ed classroom, so he's not required to take your tests in art, as you know. And he will complete modified assignments in all of his elective classes, music, art, and health and PE, with the help of Jill. Will help him to do those modified assignments. He's also going to participate to the best of his ability in PE and his other elective classes, and he does, as I said. He's really putting a lot of effort, even though it's difficult for him in PE, and he's really excelling in the area of art. So we're glad to see him excel in those areas. All right, so and then below here, I talked a little bit about some of the ways and techniques that we really assist Jacob in using his communication skills and really facilitate that. And these are used both in the gen ed classroom as well as in my special ed classroom. So we give him preferential seating in the classroom. He sits right up front. We also make sure to get his attention before giving him any instructions. We often rephrase and restate what we say to Jacob to reinforce especially like multi-step directions. We also use a lot of visual aids and gestures to communicate along with our spoken word. We also keep our instructions very brief and break them down for him. And that definitely helps since he does best with one-step directions. We make sure to break down those complex directions into smaller steps. And we also asked Jacob to say it a different way, sign it, or show me when he is having difficulty communicating his needs or we're not understanding and he's getting frustrated.
You know, I would actually like to remove the sign it that's listed
okay.
there. I really want Jacob to start relying more on his verbal communications and less on the sign language, even though I know it helps him. Not everybody knows sign language, so I don't want him to have that as his main repair strategy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That
okay?
sounds great. I'll cross that out. And how do you feel, Mo, about the other phrases we have there? Say it a different way, show me.
I think those are great.
Respond to, okay, because he's responding for those at school. So we'll put the emphasis on the verbal.
Exactly.
Verbal ones. Okay, absolutely. And just fix that. And I'll make sure to fix that on his IEP as well this evening after the meeting. Okay, so the final thing relates to Jacob's behavior. We're really trying to use positive behavior supports to encourage Jacob to use good behavior. So we do provide him with a lot of breaks when he becomes overwhelmed, and then allow him to rejoin the group once he's calmed down. We also use a lot of different strategies, including in the morning and afternoon, we let him earn points for good behavior. And then he can redeem those points at home, you've been working with us, as well as at school for movies or his favorite toys or a little snack. And he also loves working for stickers. And as everyone knows, he also enjoys verbal reinforcement. We say, great job, Jacob, keep it up. He always responds to that. So those are some of the strategies we use when he's not listening. For example, male, he responds really well to positive reinforcement strategies.
It sounds similar to what we're doing now.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to move on here to the final page of our IEP. And this is a section on statewide assessments at the top of the page. And I have marked here that Jacob is taking the CRT alternate assessment for our state. And the reason he's taking the alternate version is that his program is really focused on very direct and very intensive and extensive instruction to get him to develop and maintain and use functional and vocational skills in academics. And so in order to demonstrate those skills, he's not going to be able to do that on the standard statewide test, but he will be able to do that when he takes the CRT alternate test. So that's why I have him marked here as taking the alternate assessment. In terms of any district-wide assessments, we have none that Jacob needs to take, so I mark that as not applicable.
Okay.
Now the next session, I really wanted to open it up to discussion. This is on the extended school year. And, we're really open to having Jacob do extended school year, but at the same time, we're not sure how you feel about that and if it's really necessary. So if anyone would like to comment on what they think about Jacob.
Well, I know in the past we have declined it. It just hasn't really worked out with our summer plans or with our scheduling. But I think it would be a better fit this time around. So I'm wondering if you guys think that it would be beneficial for Jacob.
Well, I've noticed in my classes that it usually takes him about 3 weeks to get back into the swing of things.
Okay.
But it's the same way with all the other students too, so it's not taking him any longer.
Okay.
All the kids are going through that summer slug and having to go back to school and getting back in the routine of school. So I don't see it in my art classes. I don't know what you would see in reading or
Takes them about, in my special ed classes, I'd say 3 to 4 weeks, which most of the kids coming off of the summer, it's going to take them that long to regain those skills. So yeah, I think he's about average in that area.
As far as speech language, he is getting enough time as he needs. From what I see, I feel like it's up to you with his extended services. Obviously, we'd be more than happy to accommodate that.
Absolutely.
But with me, he's doing excellent and he's getting the time he needs.
I think that since it's available to us, we might as well take advantage of it.
Okay, great. Yeah, never too much instruction opportunity for sure. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mark that on there, and again, that will be on the changes that I make to the IEP, that extended school year services are necessary for the student. That second box will be checked. Great, well, thanks everybody for their input on that, and we're happy to provide them those services. Okay, the next section, need for reevaluation to determine eligibility. We had spoke about this earlier, Mo, and we did determine that is unnecessary at this time to do a reevaluation on Jacob, because he definitely continues to need our services and is eligible for our services. In the section on IEP accessibility and responsibilities, I provided some information on how I'm going to communicate with the team members who aren't here tonight, his other teachers, for example, who work with Jacob, and letting them know what we talked about tonight. So I'm going to make sure to provide all of them a copy of the accommodations and modifications we talked about. I'm also going to communicate them via email as well as verbal communication to let them know all of the strategies and his goals that we discussed this evening. All right, so is there any questions on anything that we've covered on Jacob's IEP, concerns that came up, or anything else before we sign this document? All right, okay then, fantastic. I'm going to go ahead then and send around the signing sheet. If you just find your name is typed in there and just put your signature on the line next to it, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. And I'll make sure to make all the changes to his IEP probably tomorrow morning. And if it's all right, can I send it home with Jacob tomorrow? And then you
Absolutely.
can review and make sure that everything was included?
Mhm.
Okay,
That sounds
great. Thank you, Matt. And I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. And thanks everybody for your input. Really appreciate it.